Welcome to the CrossFit Canada podcast, telling the stories of Canadian affiliate owners and coaches. Really excited for today's guest. Calling it a guest is weird. Is as we continue to get introduced to our seminar staff, and we have Pete Shaw. So, Pete, how we get you started is no different than any drop-in we have at the affiliate. You're going to introduce yourself, where you coach. You can introduce Petra Health, and then your question of the day is favorite go-to junk food.
Oh, wow. Okay. So my name is Pete Shaw. I work out and coach at CrossFit 1855, but I do have a backyard affiliate, CrossFit Petra. It's just a shed. My neighbors occasionally come over, or at least I try to encourage them, but that's a work in progress. And Petra Health is the program, the beginner CrossFit program that I run at CrossFit 1855. And my favorite junk food that I'd have to say vanilla Haagen-Dazs ice cream.
Okay. The bar or just the like
No,
a little
just
half
like
pint?
a pint. Yeah.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
can you live within the discipline of properly portioning that out, or is it like open the lid, throw the lid in the garbage because we don't need
No,
it
I
anymore?
can't portion it, man. I gotta. That's why I can't buy it. That's why I can't buy it. So it's a treat, you know. Yeah, definitely a treat. I am a sucker for a good solid amount of ice cream. Yeah. So try
There you
to
go.
keep it out of the fridge. We had it recently in the fridge for a birthday, and then it's just like, and I just tell myself, I'm not going to let this thing slow drip over the next couple of weeks. So I'm just going to crank it out and get rid of it all
Right.
down the hatch. It doesn't make sense to throw it in the garbage, right? So it's got to go into the stomach.
It's just not economical, and it's better to get it all in at once
That's right.
than
Yeah,
to spread it out over a slow death.
exactly. Then I can just focus on other things, not have it hanging over my head.
Yeah. Well, I'll go with my favorite junk food is anything salty, and it's kind of the same thing, right? Is you do a bag of Tostitos, it's like, okay, well, I got to crush this whole thing if I indulge in it.
Oh,
Why,
yeah.
why give up from there? So next part we take, always interested in folks' CrossFit origin stories. So really interested for you. Talk about how you got started in CrossFit. What's that like?
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, I grew up in a like sort of small town suburban area with garage and all this. My dad was into fitness, and he had built out himself out like a garage gym. He built it, so I was lucky enough to just sort of be exposed to fitness at a super young age, and I quickly saw sort of the benefits of that, and how it translated to the sports that I enjoyed doing. And naturally, being Canadians, we all play hockey. That became my main sport, and I never had the best hands. I had to work really hard just to keep my hockey skills up to par, but I was always a hard worker, and the gym translated directly to my success there. So I spent time in the gym, and down the road, fast forward to like university, and coming home from university in the summers, training in the garage with the garage door open. My neighbor comes over who's a firefighter, and he goes, "Hey, I think you should check out this website. I've seen all the guys at the fire hall doing it, CrossFit.com. Check it out." I was like, that sounds cool. Okay, I'll do that. And get on there. It's the old domain, and the old forums, and all the videos, the little video with the small little thumbnails, and the website looked like it was hosted by like angelfire.com. I don't know if anyone remembers that. Do you remember that?
With the
Angel Fire,
trailing
like
cursor.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you like make your own website. And so honestly, what attracted to me to it at first, because I had no idea like what to think of the whole thing, it was the fact that it was all first responders and military being highlighted on there. And previously, a lot of my training had come from like influences from those worlds, and I had been doing like the 300 workout, which was like one of the first famous like CrossFit workouts that wasn't called CrossFit, right? Like everyone kind of that got moved around. And then like MMA, a lot of MMA guys were doing similar things, and I seen similar themes there. So I got pulled into it just by following the website. And I did this for a number of years, from 2010 on for the rest of university, not knowing that like gyms existed. I saw that they had a couple certs on their site, but I wasn't really interested in that at the time. I was a biology major, wasn't really into it for any other reason than to like supplement my training. And then once I graduated, a buddy of mine, good friend from high school, who owns the gym CrossFit 1855 that I'm at right now. He was looking for a personal trainer at his boutique gym, and he said, "Hey, do you want to apply?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And I got the job, and then fell in love with training people and doing the personal training thing, having an effect on people's lives. And then it was just kind of snowballed from there. He actually ended up finding, I told him about CrossFit, and then he did all the groundwork and found out that there were CrossFit gyms in Ottawa. He joined one and started having fun. I was like, what the hell's going on here? Like, I need to do this, you know? So then my wife and I got on the search and you know, eventually joined a gym. So that was kind of like the start of it. Yeah.
How long then? So you were already working in the fitness industry, but then what was the gap between then and your first exposure to you stepping on the coaching floor?
At a CrossFit gym?
Yeah. So yeah.
Probably a year. It was probably a year. Yeah. So I started personal training and then running these, you know, HIIT group classes, and I was really into that. And I even considered at one point like opening up one of those gyms, because I was convinced that was like cutting edge. And then like CrossFit starts creeping in more and more into my training, and I'm like, and then I found out CrossFit gyms existed. I joined the membership in like 2013. Summer of 2013, joined my first gym. So it's like 3 whole years after I actually find CrossFit. And I'm like, holy shit, this is a crazy experience. Like way different than the workouts that I was trying to do by just following .com.
Right.
And so I was like, this is the way that everyone needs to train. And so I started doing it and taking those ideas and doing it with my clients. And towards the end of 2013, end of the summer, that's when I approached the gym. So the gym I had joined was CrossFit NCR.
Sure.
And they had they hadn't even had a grand opening yet, but they were sort of like still underground building up their gym. But they were accepting memberships just through word of mouth. So I joined their gym that way. And I asked the guys, before they had done their grand opening, I was like, hey guys, like, you know, I know you're probably not looking for someone to do group classes right now, but you know, if you'll let me, I'd love to work out at this gym, work and personal train my clients here. And they let me do that. So that was my foray there. I had to get my level 1 before starting to coach group classes. So I got that a few months later, and still in 2013, I got my level 1. And then immediately after that, started jumping into coaching some of the group classes at NCR in those early days. Yeah.
I think what's cool about that, well, I mean, there's a lot in there, but the next kind of, it's not necessarily classified as the next chapter, but what do you remember about your level 1? And did you ever think that the roles would be reversed, that at some point you would be up as the seminar staff and flow master? Like, was it an ambition of like, I want to be like those folks, or was it just something that happened a little bit more organically?
Not at that time, not at the level 1. I didn't have any vision of myself becoming that. I was super focused on just building up my own training business, because basically, you know, at the time, so I left this boutique gym and I was working full-time training. Like I was doing like 30 to 40 hours a week training, like personal training and group classes, group fitness classes. And I leave this place because I'm so convinced CrossFit's the way. And I had one client follow me because the location was not convenient. It was like I was downtown and I went way out of the city. It wasn't way out, but everyone downtown, they were walking to see me, and they were just going to continue to do that for their own convenience. So where NCR is more of a driving spot, commuter type of location, and I had one guy. So I was like highly focused on just like making ends meet.
Right.
And at that point, so I went to get my level 1, and I I was spending a lot of time when I first entered the personal training world trying to just be a better trainer, because it wasn't what I was studying. I was studying biology, and I was interested in, like, I took human anatomy. I was interested in biomechanics and human anatomy, and I had a background in like molecular biology, so I understood like a lot of the nutrition stuff that was being taught out there. That was like really easy for me to get.
Right.
But the experience that I was bringing to the table, personal training wise, was just what I had used on myself. I was just like, basically what I found to be successful, I was just training other people that way. So I spent my first year just diving into like every forum, every personal training blog, every strength and conditioning coach that I could find that was a leader in the space. So then going to so I was trying to form these ideas in my head of like how to streamline my thought process, or my own critical thinking of how we should be training. And then I go to the level one and I'm like, damn, I couldn't have said it better myself. Like, this all makes so much more sense now, right? Like, it basically takes all those ideas that you're floating around when you first get into strength and conditioning. You start to see results in certain areas like functional movements and rep schemes, and you're like, I can't explain why this is working, and I can't articulate why these two things are kind of the same, or they fit into the same category of training. And then you go to your level one, and it they hit you with this fire hose, and you're like, damn, this, especially if you have a little bit of a fitness background going in there, it just, everything clicks and makes so much sense. Like, this is exactly what I need to focus on for the rest of my life. And that's the moment. That's exactly what I said to myself after that. I was like, wow, like this is perfect. Like, I don't need to do anything else than CrossFit.
Yeah. So it sounds like then you were motivated more by, like, I always say it's like the most logical training program. It's like it holds your attention because it's logical.
Yep.
And so you were clearly more dedicated to the pursuit of that than the pursuit of continuing to get your credentials.
Yep.
But it's not that those things weren't important. It's just those were the check marks along the way towards a lifelong pursuit.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, the goal was to be a better trainer, and the level one was the level one was at first a step that I needed to take to train group classes at this CrossFit gym that I was now a personal trainer at. Yeah. But then it became like, oh shit, like this is more than that. Like, this is really educating me in a way that I didn't think, I could be educated beyond just what I was taking in on the website in the first place, right? Like, I mean, it's all the information's there for free, but to tease out the details of the level one training guide on your own are nearly impossible. And then to have it explained to you in layman's terms and in ways that are just really broken down and easy to understand, only the red shirts at the level one seminar could do it in that way. So going to the seminar was crazy valuable for me to just take those concepts and be able to implement them all right away, and just have like a nice, 10,000 foot view outlook on training, and you're just able to make better decisions for your clients, right? And that was really what the goal was. For sure.
And then it's interesting in hindsight to, like, where it's taken you to this point, and not that we're not gonna get to any of that yet. What were the early days of figuring it out like for you guys? Because you were there training
figuring out CrossFit.
Well, but I'm thinking of you, PT, Paul Tremblay, and Rez, just three guys figuring it out in terms of business, but all three of you eventually end up on seminar staff. So you're figuring out what is coaching look like, and you didn't have the amount of resources that exist today.
Yep. You cut out on me for a second there, so I'm just going to change my Wi-Fi and see if is that a good or a bad thing if I do that right now.
All right. So back recording again. So we're talking about what it was like for these three bros doing dude things, trying to make it in business. training, also coaching, but then what was that like with the lack of resources compared to what it's like now? And
Yeah, that's a good question. So I mean, like, you know, the training was definitely a big focus for me in the younger days, right? We, you know, as soon as I joined the gym, as soon as I joined NCR, at that point too, I had also discovered the CrossFit Open. So before I had even joined the gym, I did my first Open in 2013. And that, you know, I had stopped playing hockey, all that stuff. So it scratched that competitive itch. So I was oriented towards CrossFit partly because it was the best thing to train with, I found for myself, which translated to the best thing then for my clients. But now I found this sport of CrossFit, the sport of fitness. And I was like highly interested in that. And so almost as soon as I, you know, walked into NCR, I was like, you know, I knew that they were, you know, competitive athletes, and they had sent teams to the games. And so I said, guys, I want to go to the games. And they thought I was nuts. And they're like, settle down, kid. Like,
right.
You know, start training with us first. We'll see what happens. So I was like, okay. So I started training with them and coaching. And I think, you know, it was really good to have each other to lean on, because, you know, we definitely wanted to be the best coaches. We wanted to all compete at the CrossFit Games and simultaneously, you know, run this successful business. And, you know, it was like divide and conquer situation. We all had similar goals. We all had, you know, similar priorities. None of us had had families at the time. So we had flexible schedules. You know, Paul and I, shortly after that, ended up moving in together in a house like right down the street from the gym. Like we'd roll out of bed and freaking walk down 400 meters to the gym and just start 6 a.m. class, right? So it becomes very easy to live that lifestyle and just immerse your entire life around CrossFit and this one location, this one gym. So from that perspective, things were, you know, pretty easy from a practical standpoint. And then from a training standpoint, I think a lot of the lessons learned came from training, to be honest. And, you know, what to do, what not to do, what was successful, what was not successful. You know, we messing around in the gym. Obviously, you got a lot of downtime in the gym, and we use those times to mess around with our own training and practice progressions and do these. And in the days before the level 2, it was a little bit of a gong show, to be honest. You know, we were following different training programs as sort of a group of guys and girls who wanted to compete. And we probably did that for 6 months to a year, just trying to figure out what was the best training program for the gym and doing our best to teach people the techniques of these movements, but not really knowing or having the tools or the skills to teach it to large groups.
Right.
I was doing it with personal training. And so, you know, I was doing my best to have that translate into the group environment. I had experienced training groups before, but it wasn't like with the HIIT classes. It was just like blow a whistle, turn the music up, and, you know, yell, do more, wipe the sweat on the floors in between rounds, and that's kind of it, right? But Reza and Paul were definitely trying to do more teaching in their classes, and I noticed that as soon as I got there, and I was like, okay, this is a higher level of coaching. But quite honestly, like, things didn't take a huge turn for the better until we all got our level 2. Like, it was in 2014, like 2013, I said I joined the gym. We had our grand opening in October that year. And then in 2014, we were like, okay, we need to level up. We got to get, for the success of the gym, we got to get our level 2s. Like, this needs to happen. So we went and got our level 2s, and it was like a night and day change with like how we ran the classes, you know, how the results that people were seeing, because we were better able to manage the group and give everyone attention, and everything that you learn at the level 2. We always say, like, hey, you know, Monday your classes are going to change likely, and this is exactly what happened to us.
let's lean into that a little bit more, like, because now you get to run level 2 seminars, and what types of change or what inspires you in the change that you see from someone from Saturday morning to Sunday afternoon?
What inspires me, like how does that person inspire me, or just like generally, like how is it inspiring to see that change? I guess
Maybe both in the
yeah,
sense of, for you, the level 2 was life changing. Just Monday
yeah.
morning, you're a totally different coach.
Hmm.
Has that changed over 13 years?
No, like the effect the level 2 has on people has not changed. No, and I tell this story to people in opening remarks every weekend. Like I tell them the story of my level 2 experience, and often I'll tell them too that I haven't heard of someone who hasn't had the same experience. There's been maybe the odd person here. I've delivered hundreds of seminars, but see and talk to lots of people. So inevitably there's a couple in there that are like hard-headed individuals who come at it with the wrong attitude. Less so nowadays than maybe in maybe pre 2016, but the effect that it had on my coaching to this day, the level 2 has had the most profound effect on my coaching, like the most drastic positive change of anything I've ever done. And in the fitness industry, and I wrote my CSCS certification from the NSCA, like the big strength and conditioning certs, and I've done those, and they don't teach you in a practical sense like how to take that theory and apply it to a group of people. And
Right.
when we think of training, like the small group model, or the small medium group model of training is how you're going to scale your training and be a professional trainer in the true sense. You're going to make some money doing it. And so at some point, if you're going to do it like that, you're going to keep getting people results, you're going to optimize those results. You got to figure out some strategies and how to give everyone attention the same way that you're giving someone one-on-one attention in a personal training session. Like, why are the personal training sessions so high ticket? Why are people willing to pay $100, $150 in some cases, maybe even more if you're really high level, for 1 hour with you? It's because the attention that they perceive that they're getting. Right. You can give. I mean, the reality is they are getting more attention for a lot of trainers, but if you've got the skills to take a group of people and give everyone the same attention, and they're going to get the same results from that class, then there's no reason that you're not going to be able to run a really profitable, well-run gym just because you've got those skills. People in theory should be willing to pay the same amount of money for that, right? They're not. Right. You're going to give them a discount because there's more people in that class. But if I can do a one-on-one session, you're going to pay me $150 an hour, and I tell you I get you the same results in that class. It's like, why you should be willing also to pay $150 in that class, right? So this is the scalability of it, and honestly, it's just a quality of training thing. It all comes down to the quality of training. They're willing to do it because they perceive that, and they are often receiving a higher quality of training in the one-on-one environment. And so the question is just like, what are the tools I can hone, and what are the tools at my disposal to make it a reality that someone's receiving those higher level of instruction, the higher level of attention in a group class? And the level 2 is exactly the answer to that question.
Well, and I think what's cool about the level 2 is how you get to try things in real time.
Yeah.
Right. And is I can only guess, I think I was talking to Jocelyn. She did the old school level 2, the crush your soul original level 2.
Yep. With the test, with the in-person test at the end.
Yeah. Right. And the go up and face the judges like on American Idol. They talk.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah.
But I did the level 2 in 2015, actually road trip down to Mayhem for it. And the first day feedback was just like, and you think I just drove 12 hours to hear this feedback.
Yeah.
But you leave in Monday and as long as you implement it, it's more valuable than anything.
Mm-hmm.
So how is that feedback important to receive for new trainers, especially if they're not getting it daily?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the most important thing. The only way, you need to think of it in terms of a language that you can understand, right? So if you're not understanding why the feedback's important, it's because you're not thinking about it the right way. If you're a trainer, you're coaching people, you're giving people feedback all the time. If you're not doing your job. But you're just doing it in terms of movement. You're giving people constant feedback on their movement. And this is just feedback on the skill that you're trying to hone. Instead of trying to hone an air squat, you're trying to hone your coaching. And what the job of the seminar staff is to look for the faults in your coaching, just like you would look for the faults in someone's air squat, and then give you the cues, which is the same thing as feedback, that you need to improve it. And you know, it's the how. The level 2 course is the how-to of coaching, right? That's what the information is. A lot of trainers are really good at the what. They've got the knowledge. It's like where they need to place the feet, where maybe even sometimes the why. It's like, why are we going below parallel, etc. Right? And the list goes on. Choose any movement, choose any biomechanical position, and you can talk about it till the cows come home. But until you can figure out the language of coaching, the how to get someone in that position, then you're ineffective as a coach. And so the feedback you're receiving at the seminar is simply, we're coaching the coach. We're trying to give you the cue that you need to more effectively get your athletes into better positions, right? And I think if you look at it from that orientation, if it's not like a personal thing, right? Just like it's not personal when I tell someone to get their knees out.
Right.
You know, you've paid money to come to this course to improve a skill, the skill of coaching. And our job is to look at your areas of weakness and find out what faults you have, and then try to make you better by the end of the weekend.
And exactly, like thinking about the points of performance of any movement, it's an objective way to get everyone onto the same page. And when I say everyone, it's like the trainer as well as the 5, 10, 15 people in a class.
Yep.
And so if we're talking knees tracking over the toes, or even more simply able to see is weight in the heels, you're giving every person feedback, is their weight in their heels. So what you're saying, as we as seminar coaches are saying, I would like to see you make a correction with every rep you call. And you called 5 reps, but there were 0 corrections made. It's pretty black and white at that point, right?
Correct. That's akin to your heels were on the ground for 3 out of 5 of those reps, and then I saw you starting to flutter and shift to the balls of your feet, right? It's the same idea. It's like we're threshold training. We're threshold training with coaching rather than threshold training with the movement. I think when you come at it with that lens, it makes you more receptive to the feedback for sure. So, you know, if I think nowadays too, people catch on to that a little bit sooner. You know, maybe in the old days, you know, we as seminar staff were also learning the best ways to give feedback, right? And also to prepare people for receiving it in the right way. And I think now, as we should, right, we've learned and are continuing to learn how to better deliver feedback and temper it in a way that it's received with open arms, and people are more ready to implement that right as soon as Monday rolls around, rather than, you know, putting up a wall, which is probably what some people did, and what most people will do when feedback's delivered poorly.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know, I think what's cool then is like, hey, let's jump ahead a bunch of years, because maybe someone might think that the more you do it, the easier feedback is to receive. But talk me through your experience with the level 4, and that even at your highest, you being at the highest level of coaching, you're still able to get hard to hear feedback in the terms of a pass or fail, but using that as motivator to find your weaknesses and improve on them.
Yeah, the level 4 test, man. The level 4 is crazy. That so when that thing, well, so that when the new version of it came out, because we just talked about Jocelyn, she got her level 4 as soon as the test was formed, or at least they were talking about forming it. Everyone who had taken that old level 2 evaluation that Jocelyn did in front of the American Idol style judges. They got their level 4s automatically. So the idea of the new test is that you're just isolating that evaluation as a standalone test and certification. And so for me, I think that, well, obviously I was nervous, or if it's not obvious, it should be, and it should be because we're only nervous about things that we care about.
Right.
And it should be quite clear that I care about my coaching. And so that's the same reason that everyone coming to the level 2 is nervous, is because they're nervous to put their skills on display in front of their own peers who also do the same thing and want to be great. So without seeing all that stuff ahead of time, and you feel like you're being judged. And at the level 4, you are being judged because you're being evaluated, and you've got 2 excellent seminar staff and experienced coaches there sitting there with clipboards, marking clicking a pen, hopefully, trying to be as objective as possible to see if you're ticking the boxes.
Yeah.
And it was like the CrossFit Games of coaching for me when I first did that. It was with the second time I did it too, but the first time, I went through, didn't know what to expect. I was like, holy shit, this is crazy, man. Like, such high pressure, and you want to do well, and you go through the whole thing and you leave, and you black out as you're going through the evaluation, and then you leave it not knowing at all what's going to happen. I felt like I had given it my best shot, and I ended up failing my first one. Immediately knew that I needed to shore up in some areas, and you get the breakdown back after you fail the first time, and it tells you your areas that you're strong and weak at. And so I took that and ran with it, and about 4 to 6 months later, registered for my second go, and then finally passed it. So.
I equate it to, or describe it as, like, take a bucket of Lego, put it out on the gym floor, and then try to coach in bare feet.
Right. Yeah, that's not a bad analogy, man. Yeah, it's like, it's crazy, and you're so committed to trying to make the perfect class that often you make mistakes trying to make it too perfect, or you make a mistake. Because it's just, the fact is that it's impossible to make it perfect, right? And if you do make it perfect, you're not going to be flexible enough to coach what's in front of you, and that's the biggest mistake you can make.
Right.
And so I think that for me, at least, going through it the first time, it was like the natural stress of it combined with progressing through the actual evaluation in the class, continuing to get more stress and more stress and more stress because more things were not going the way that I wanted it to, right?
Right.
But it was stupid. But looking back in hindsight, it was stupid of me to think that any of it was going to go the way I wanted it to. Right. And you just, so the second time around, you plan to be a little more flexible, and you have those contingencies and stuff. But it's the feeling of taking the feedback. I remember receiving the breakdown of it, and I remember receiving the detailed assessment of the areas that I needed to improve on, and being like, man, and I disagreed with all of it. I was like, right, I was like, I got it, I read it, I was like, I disagree with all this, like, and then you read it a second time, you're like, no, maybe they're right in this area, and then you read it a third time, you're like, a couple more areas, maybe you agree with them, and then you go do your mentorship. I had the follow-up call with Denise Thomas, and she helped me see the light, and she's got a nice way of delivering feedback and asking questions, and making you reflect a little bit on yourself. And it was, after that call and after sitting with it for a little while, I pretty much knew what I had to do. Just got to take the feedback, and you know what, it's hard for anyone to receive feedback, and like you said, especially if you're not already receiving it, right?
Yeah.
I was receiving feedback on my classes from time to time, but not to that a degree or intensity, and so for sure, and so it was for sure a shock at first, but it was totally necessary, because failing and then getting the feedback and then going back and doing it a second time, it made me a way better coach. I'm actually thankful that I failed. I had failed it by 1 point the first time, and so I was like, damn, so close. Hit myself in the head for it. But had I not failed, I wouldn't have taken the next 4 to 6 months to hone my coaching skills in the same way, and I would just be the same coach. Right, in my eyes, the same mediocre coach. I feel like I'm way better now for that failure that I had in that first go.
Yeah, because success can be a curse in a way, and whether it's coaching, training, or entrepreneurship, like, it's through the failures, but failing forward, that the most lessons are learned.
Yep.
And it can be put through that, you already said it, is like a lot of your successes early on was looking at things through the lens of training. And in a way, like, coaching's no different. Like, when you look at mechanics, consistency, and intensity, not in the application to the client, but my own coaching mechanics,
Yep.
we tend to always want to jump right to intensity.
Yep.
Instead of dialing back to mechanics. And most of the time, the simplest way to refine those mechanics is just to slow down a little bit.
Yep. Totally.
And how do you see that? Did you see that in your own coaching? Was just like, okay, let's slow down a bit. Let's look for these objective measurements that I got feedback on. And then how can I bring intensity back into it?
Yeah, well, I think the analogy you just used there is perfect. The mechanics, consistency, intensity. What is that? What do we use that charter for? It's to threshold train effectively. And what's threshold training? It's the iterative process of improving technique while simultaneously increasing intensity over time. And it's not the mistakes, as you said, that make you better, but it's the ability to correct those mistakes at gradually increasing intensities, right? From a coaching perspective, the failure that I had, or anybody's going to have, is necessary. Yeah. But it's not the failure that makes you better. It's being able to correct that mistake and correct that failure, and slowing down, like you said, is necessary in order to correct, the mechanics of your own coaching, just the same way that it would be necessary to correct the mechanics of a thruster. If you're going too fast in Fran and you're letting your knees cave in, what am I going to tell you to do? I'm going to give you a couple cues. You can't fix that. I'll tell you to slow down so you can fix it. The same thing with your coaching. You're going to have to take a step back potentially in order to take 5 steps forward. And then the mechanics that we're talking about, the points of performance, fall under those 6 categories that are given to everyone at the level 2 course. And the level 4, pretty much the evaluation is the exact same. They switch up some categories and they lump in demonstration with teaching, and then they create a new category called application, where you're supposed to display effective threshold training, effective scaling, and an effective warm up and cool down. But yeah, this is you hit the nail on the head there, right? Everything we teach in the technique lecture of the level 1 those theories can be directly applied to the coaching process.
And so, it's like, I think what we're seeing is then the parallels of receiving feedback as coaches and owners gives us a chance to get better. We would be doing our members a disservice by not trying to give them more feedback on their movement.
Yep.
And slowing them down, right? And so do you think that's going by the wayside a little bit? Like, is there opportunities for affiliates to do that more and get away from the volume standpoint?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny. I'm seeing it, the trend there since the dawn of CrossFit. There's always been a trend towards wanting more volume. Right. I mean, at the level 1 training guide, which hasn't changed in 15, 20 freaking years, like the programming section of that course, Greg, he speaks to the novice's curse and ties that into later in the programming section, people just wanting to increase the volume all the time. But substituting, intensity for volume is a version of the novice's curse, right? You're not orienting yourself in the right direction. And what volume does is it also prevents skill building, right? It prevents the opportunity to build skills. What's our definition of strength? It's the productive application of force, which included in that definition is building skills and acquiring skills. For us as CrossFitters, acquiring a new skill is an expression of getting stronger. So you rob people of the opportunity to get stronger and get fitter if you start to just put way too much volume in. There's I actually see the trend. I think CAP and CrossFit's done a great job of exposing people to CAP programming, and a lot of gyms are taking it up. And CAP programming is really smart programming for affiliates, and I think people are getting a taste of what good programming is. And what it also does is forces them to then start to think of critically, how can I fill the time in my class with something more valuable than that extra watt? And the answer becomes coaching, and then they start to see that, and then the trickle down effect is, okay, well, if I have to do coaching, then I have to be a good coach. I can't just send any old coach into the fire like that. And then they're like, oh shit, how do I get the coaches up to speed? Well, now I need to give them feedback on their coaching. And it's like, okay, and now you're in a coaching development program, and you start to slowly see the trickle down of, it's not going to all come at once. But the trickle down effect is you've got this, a facility where from the top down, you have, the owner or the head coach giving feedback to the more intermediate and novice coaches, and the novice coaches are doing a great job following a program like CAP, or maybe it's an in-house program or some other one workout per day program where there's a focus on, an extended specific warm-up where there's plenty of reps, controlled reps, plenty of ramp up and time to get coaching and cueing in, and near perfect technique before 3, 2, 1, go. So something I always tell people is like, hey man, you think technique's going to get better when I turn that clock on?
Right.
100% of the time it gets worse. There's only one direction that the technique is going to go when intensity gets raised. Technique will fall. And the goal is to always have people with near perfect technique, right? Or as perfect as they could possibly have, given the movement and the load, etc., to go into that, that workout, whatever it may be. People forget that, right?
Well, and I think you nailed it when you said ramp up, right? Is like, if we look at this like kind of puzzle piece of strength plus Metcon that I don't think was ever just born out of the ether. It was originally practice plus Metcon. practice plus Metcon, right? And so, but then what happened is that practice all of a sudden got turned into a strength piece. They're not realizing, well, no, you can still have something that looks and smells like strength, like a 3x5 power clean, that's going to prepare me and allow me as a coach to assess for threshold training for the workout.
Yep.
So maybe the folks who are uncomfortable with making a switch, you know, I'm sure after every level 2, they're like, okay, we got to go back to 1 workout a day, but it's going to make everyone uncomfortable. It's like, it doesn't have to be as night and day as it sounds. It's just adding a little bit more practice and giving more feedback, and then turning the burners on.
Totally. And hey, like I'll be the first one to say, like, that's not a black and white rule. Like in terms of just 1 workout a day. There's plenty of times where I coach multiple things in a class, but you need to have an intelligent thought process behind the type of pieces that are being programmed, the movements that are being programmed. So it lends itself to that skill development piece, right? Like the level of the coach, an advanced coach is going to better be able to more effectively coach a large group through a multi-piece workout, because they'll know where to prioritize coaching, where to pull things out. They'll know how to brief the class on where they should be putting their efforts, knowing going in eyes wide open that maybe if they go hard on the first one, the second piece is going to suffer intensity wise, et cetera, right? And so there's it's not black and white. And where the multi-day program came from was like in one of Greg's earliest articles in programming, he's talking about an example of an effective class, and he talks about doing a strength piece and immediately going into a gymnastics circuit and like finishing with some intervals. Like this is, and it's not, that single idea is not a bad idea, but it's just an idea, and people need to realize it's not the only idea, and there's a purpose. There can be a purpose behind that, but when you zoom out and look at the 10,000 foot view and what your goals are with your clients and what your goals should be as a coach, that skill development piece, if you're over programming, it becomes impossible to implement that stuff in, and so you need to tease out and find a way to thin the volume a little bit in some areas so you can get quality coaching in. And it takes an intelligently designed program, but it could be distilled down to just doing like having 1 focused intensity piece a day, because then that really tells you, that orients the coach. It tells you like what the goal is of the class, and then everything else can just sort of be built around that 1 piece, right?
Well, and again, back to the beginning of looking at objective measurables, is this person's weight on the heels, yes or no? It can be just looked as simply as, in this hour, based on what's programmed, am I going to be able to give everyone a little bit of personalized feedback?
Yep.
If it's yes, hell yeah, it doesn't matter what's in there, right? But if it's, I'm going to be chasing my tail for 60 minutes, well, then there's an objective way to look at, to say, well, maybe then it's not as intelligently designed, or there's room for change for execution.
Yep, absolutely.
So how can folks find you to follow in on more of these pieces of wisdom?
So you could go to the website here, petrahealth.ca. Every day I post a workout for my crew. I post a free workout on the blog, old school style. Just like you want to give it out. Gotta get with the old days, man. Like open source, collaboration, comment, figure it out. So we got free programming there. After every workout, there's a free recipe that I just prompt AI to make a simple recipe, and I just paste it on there with a little picture and try to encourage people to eat healthier. And then underneath that, there'll be like a little article or a little video or something fitness oriented or nutrition article, anything that's just interesting to read. So they can go to the website, you can comment, you can check that stuff out. And then the only social media that I have is the social media for that class that you can access through the website. And my personal social media is limited to just X. I'm just on the X platform. I like words more than pictures.
Cool.
So hit me up. It's just Peter M. Shaw is my handle. So you can put @Peter M. Shaw on X and you can find me there. It'd be pretty easy to find me. Yeah, or just like Pete Shaw. I'm sure if you just search that, like I'll pop up there. And yeah, hit me up anytime you want to chat or reach out if you want to talk coaching, nutrition, any of that stuff.
And on that note, 3, 2, 1, time.